You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So, welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 258.
Giant squid attacks, walking trees, Queen Elizabeth EVP, Reptile Men, NC Piranha, and Blythe Street Battle.
Yeah. So here we are again. Welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. And this time, the items we have listed in the podcast are things that we were going to talk about in previous podcasts, but did not.
Okay.
So I don't know if these actually make the cut, but I thought they were pretty interesting, and that's kind of what we do. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And saddle up.
Okay.
Strap it in. Buckle your seatbelts. We got a lot of stuff to talk about and, stuff like that. So anyway, here we go. So the podcast was created as a means for us to talk about some of the weird stuff that we experienced and some of the weird places we've gone and all that sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And we've done that. We go places, we talk about stuff. Not all the time do we go places because there's always stuff to do. Mm-hmm. So in times like that, what do? We sit around and wish we had places to go and talk about stuff that we would have seen, right?
Okay.
But, as it is with everybody, you get hung up in things and, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to. So you sit there and you look at weird stuff on the internet and go, man, that's great. And so you save it.
Yeah.
And then a couple of days goes by and you go, let me look at all the stuff I saved. And then you think to yourself, what was I doing when I saved all this? Was this even worth talking about? What was I thinking? It's like, it's just kind of one of those things. And then you're like, well, this is not where I'm at right now, so I'll talk about it later. And then you forget.
I'll go back to, me and my friend Amy were talking, and it was like, you leave me and my 37 open tabs open.
That's right. Leave me and my notepads and scribble on the back of envelope notes that are just of dire importance later, and then eventually they get covered in amazing coffee cup rings and things like that. And then you look at it and you go, what the hell does this mean?
Oh, I literally have these background tabs now. One's helping a nonprofit or something, and the other is just puppies. And I'm just
yeah, unrelated. Well, my stuff's giant squid attack.
So,
and then you're like, oh man, I wish I would have written more than just that. So, walking trees. It's like, ooh, what's that about? Then you have to look it all up all over again. So, anyway, we have a bunch of stuff like that. These are weird things that we found to be interesting and the stuff that we like to talk about. So we're going to talk about them. Now, this particular podcast is brought to you by our Patreon supporters.
Yes. Thank you guys for supporting us on every show.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated. And so since we like to broadcast paranormal news and strange experiences and weird things we find from our underground bunker in the mountains of western North Carolina, we should have a disclaimer.
And what is that disclaimer?
I don't know. We should just have one. Something to make us more edgy. You know what I mean? What do you think?
Listen at your leisure. That's going to be our disclaimer.
Yeah. Strap in. Buckle up. You ever notice when they say that kind of thing, then it's just nothing really ever happens. It's like, oh, here we go. Yeah. It's like a roller coaster. If you got on a roller coaster that had a shoulder harness, a lap bar, and a seatbelt, you'd be like, man, this is either going to be the best ever or the worst ever.
Usually for me, because I'm only 5'2", it was the worst ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Anyways, if you guys want to give us a call, you can do so. Our phone number is going to be 575-208-4025. And yes, that is a Roswell area code.
Yeah. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Well, if they decide, they can call and leave us a message about their strange experience or maybe one of those weird tabs on their browser they have open.
Yeah. It's something nobody ever really calls. So I think it's because we don't call either.
That's true.
I wonder if you can send a text message to that number. So you guys should try it out.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. You can totally send a text message. It shows
right.
up. Okay, so the other day I was sitting there cruising around doing some stuff on the internet, It's about a week ago or so, probably a little bit more. And I came across this article that talked about the USS Stein, which was a ship, right, out of San Diego, and the idea that it got attacked by a giant squid.
Okay.
And there was a link to a video on YouTube from Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. Okay. And it actually had, people talking.
Yeah.
And like footage and stuff. I was like, whoa, man, this is crazy. So then I was thinking about it. I used to be stationed in San Diego in the Navy. And what happened was something attacked the sonar dome on the USS Stein. And allegedly this was its maiden trip. So its first time underway. And the sonar dome went, according to the British guy who's doing the voiceover for this, unserviceable. Which is, I've never really heard that before, but anyway, it's kind of one of those things where since I was a sonar tech in the U.S. Navy, which is a surface ship type designation, because you can have the submarine guys can be sonar technicians as well, but I was surface, not subsurface. And the dome is this big bulbous thing underneath the forecastle, way down about 30 feet or so underwater, and it's what houses all the sonar gear. Like the transducers and the hydrophones. Hydrophone's another word just for, say, underwater microphone. Transducer is a device that basically emits sound. And it doesn't just emit it, it creates it and basically sends it out in the ocean. Now, you can buy like sonar and 3D side scan sonar and all this crazy stuff for your fish finder, your depth finder. Because now 60 years later, it's pretty good technology. And this was basically in the 70s when this ship had an alleged attack with a giant squid.
Yeah, I was trying to look at the footage because the video link leads to basically a part of the show and showing some of the footage. And I was like, this looks like when I was a kid.
Oh, it's from the 70s.
It's 1980 was documentary season 1 for Arthur C. Clarke.
Well, the ship came out in the 70s.
Mysterious World.
Yeah. And so what we decided to do was in the spirit of Creative Commons, and since this is a transformative piece of commentary about said article, we're going to play a little snippet and we're going to hope for the best. So that's kind of what we're going to do. It's kind of crazy. It's not too terribly long, but it's just interesting to hear people talk about this, and this was on the news too, so it wasn't like some just sort of made up thing. And the thing about this whole thing is, and what really sort of piqued my interest with this, is I vaguely remember hearing about this when I went to sonar school in San Diego. So I'm familiar with this ship and heard it and have heard of it, and this was back when I went in 1990. I heard all about it, and I just thought it was some sort of sea tail sort of thing, and so evidently it wasn't.
Okay.
So we're going to give it a little shot and see what y'all think. So here you go. Is it playing? I pressed it. Did I not press it hard enough?
On her maiden
There we
voyage
go.
out of San Diego, the U.S. Navy frigate Stein also had a weird encounter. The Stein's anti-submarine sonar gear suddenly went U.S., unserviceable. She sailed home. Once the family reunions were over and the ship was in dry dock, Petty Officer Ira Carpenter went down to examine the underwater dome.
We noticed that there were some quite long scratches starting from the front and the side and down underneath the dome itself. The longest one, I would say, was about 4 feet long. At the bottom of each one of these cuts, or at least 90% of the cuts, was something embedded underneath the rubber coating itself. Of course, I was interested to determine what that was. I had never seen anything like this before. This type of damage was brand new to me. So I used my knife to pick out this foreign object underneath the no-foul coating. And it looked to me like it was a claw. And I quipped to my SW officer at the time. I said, look here, it looks like we have been attacked by a bunch of small alligators.
Navy biologist F.G. Wood.
This is a small piece of the no-foul covering that was taken from the sonar dome of this ship. In many of these cuts were found teeth or claws, such as this one. And it's apparent that whatever did this damage grasped the dome and ripped all the way through this rubber covering to the metal below.
The claw it looked like it had been wrenched out of whatever had put it there.
I think that it must be from a squid, because squids do have claws or hooks similar to this. Nothing else that is known in the ocean has structures of this kind.
So I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is back in the day before they realized that there are such things as giant squids.
Yeah.
You know, because it just became, here in the past 10, 15 years that they actually started catching footage of these giant squids and underwater oil rig footage and weird stuff in Japan and all that. So this was like a real thing. And I was kind of surprised by it to see it, you know, and hear about it. And I'm like, wow, man. And they have an interview. Now, when they talk about the guy being a petty officer, he's not a petty officer. He's a master chief.
Mm-hmm.
There is a big distinction between just a regular old petty officer who knows a little bit about the ocean and a master chief.
Okay.
Master chief they've been around for a long time. They're made out of salt.
Okay.
You know, these guys have experience and stuff, and for, you know, him to be down there and scraping at it and stuff like that and trying to figure out what these claws were, it's something. So I'm like, man, that's crazy, right? And, you know, I've sailed in some ocean, man. I've been underway and deployed, right, most of my naval going career. Now, I thought this was pretty neat because I started looking at some of the comments of the YouTube video, and everything we talk about in the show notes does have a link that you can go to, and you can kind of check it out for yourself. And, you know, and there's a couple cool comments, right? And one of them is the sonar probably gives them a headache. And I was thinking, is he talking about the squids?
Yes.
You know, or the whale or the sonar operators? It's like, all right, so I thought that was pretty funny, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I've wondered for years if any submarines had something like this happen. And they talk about some other things, but there was a bunch of comments, and one of them was, and I'm trying to find it again, where it says, does anybody remember when the USNS Hess TAGS 38 suffered similar damage? It was around 1983 when the Hess was in dry dock in San Francisco, and they had a security detail to keep everybody away from the rubber-covered sonar dome. They had the same bite marks and claw pieces were found embedded in the rubber, and some of the yard workers on night shift snuck down there to take a look, and there were rumors flying all week.
Wow. So there's like almost a 10-year period over there in the Pacific Ocean where the giant squid and I guess the U.S. Navy were having interactions on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because you said the Stein was in the 70s, and then this
like 78, you know.
Okay, and then this guy, it's like 1983. And then I think somewhere around that time period, and do not quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure even Cousteau's boat had a deep sea squid encounter too.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it seems like there's been a bunch of sea attacks. Like I know the militaries, both like Soviet and ours and those stuff, have like shot things in the ocean with torpedoes because they think they might be a submarine or something, right?
Yeah.
So there's been like these sea monster attacks, if you want to call them that. They don't really have any real detail, proof, or anything like that, but it's been made mention. And what I thought was, you go look at these old ancient seafaring maps that you see in like history books and stuff. There's always a giant squid latched onto the front of one of these like sailing ships trying to chew it to pieces, right?
The Kraken.
Yeah, and then you got like Jules Verne and all this other crazy stuff. So, and it just makes you wonder. It's like, man, I wonder how much this is, you know, derived from a real fact. Like, hey, you need to watch out in this particular area of the ocean where you're going. There's these giant squids, and we've included this wonderful horrific picture in the map to let you know that you're going to get chewed on by some underwater beastie. Because if you start looking at it like that, maybe the people, if you think that the people back in the olden days were smart and not just randomly putting stuff on maps just for decorative purposes, maybe that really is a real warning.
And you got to think, so early sailors, you know, they did not have as much resources or technology as we do. So they were encountering strange weather and bad weather all the time. So today we have expensive boats. We don't want to take them out during storms because we know there's going to be a storm. Since these early sailors, they weren't always sure when a storm was going to happen. There were enough encounters during strange weather that they felt it necessary to put that kraken or that giant squid on there.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, wow, if we wanted to risk, observation vessels more often and put them out during strange weather, or use these old maps and just stick one there during like El Nino, and just stick an observation boat out there. Are we going to see more giant squids? Or are we going to see some of these other monsters that are alluded to in old-time maritime maps?
No, probably not. Well, I mean, because sailing ships make their own type of noise, powered vessels also make their own type of noise.
Yeah.
Most sailing ships didn't have giant teeth at the back of it that'll chop them up.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know. I mean, now you got Google Earth where every once in a while you'll see somebody, so, oh my gosh, look what I found. And they'll blow it up 1,000 times and it's a big fish.
Yeah.
Or a kraken or, megalodon or something crazy like that.
I think one of the last good ones I saw was like off the coast of like southern Japan, and somebody found this giant sunfish. It was like the biggest sunfish ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But all those strange creatures, I don't know.
Never know. I thought it was pretty interesting, and evidently there's been more attacks. And you could probably spend a good amount of time documenting or making a little web page full of undersea / ocean attacks, and then I'm sure that'll lead into mermaids and everything else. But I just thought that was kind of cool. It was like, I'm kind of like related to that information or have a close understanding to it, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, that's interesting.
Oh, there's tons of giant squid footage.
Yeah. Nobody cares anymore, right? Nobody really cares about megafauna, because that's our 14 term of the day. Basically, what a megafauna is a bigger version of something you'd normally see, like giant squid versus squid.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I could read the super long paragraph in Wikipedia or even the dictionary, but let's just call it what it is. It's something that's a large animal, right? Mm-hmm. It could be in a large area. These giant versions of animals that you see. Like, for example, I would think that a thunderbird would probably be a megafauna. Because at the end of the day, you've got two different types of thunderbirds. But the one I'm talking about, it looks like a big-ass bird. It should be like a megafauna.
And in some extent, it's referred to for, like, terrestrial mammals, but it extends, again, like you said, to, like, the giant squid. Yeah. And it harkens... elephants and whales. And it harkens back to just global changes in the environment and the conditions of planet Earth, that animals naturally kind of got smaller. And it may have been due to things like not being able to handle changes in gravity. Our air got thinner and thinner over time, so animals shrunk. You got to think megafauna, they need a lot of nutrients. They need a lot of oxygen. So that's why we don't have so many big creatures anymore. Right now, some science guy is just like, what are they talking about? The joke's on you, science guy. We talk about whatever we want. Okay, so moving back into the podcast, I thought that was kind of neat about the whole giant squid thing. And then I sort of looked into the list, and I came across walking trees. Yeah. Now, my walking tree is different than the article we're going to talk about, because I was thinking of walking trees like, when Tolkien did it in his books, or as I used to call him, Tolkien. Yeah. Or there was trees that would walk and fight and stuff like that. And then I started thinking about the videos that you'd see where people are like, there's Bigfoot. Look at him playing with this tree. And you'll see like one tree in a group of trees just going all crazy and stuff like that. And people are like, look at this video of a Bigfoot tree, Mm-hmm. And I always thought, well, I don't think that's probably a thing. Especially when I've seen shows, and you've seen shows, where like these logging people, I think we actually talked about this, like swamp loggers or whatever, where they have a machine that goes down and grabs by the base of the tree, chainsaw blade pops out, cuts the tree, and they pick it up and run with it. Yeah. Now, if you're from a distance like a hillside looking at a tree or a bunch of trees, and you've seen one just flying down the road, like taking off and just running, right? You're like, oh my God, it's really not. It's like loggers, doing their part to do whatever it is they do, and they do. Say that particular style of logging equipment, one that grabs the tree and cuts it off at the base and gets it out of there, is less destructive in some ways than others. I don't know. So
I'm not a tree guy, but this particular article talks about, do trees actually walk? And, the idea that some trees actually walk is, I for some reason have come across this like multiple times.
Yeah.
Just in the past 2 weeks. Sometimes on TikTok where they say, look, this is a walking tree. And there was a lady who's like, watched this tree. And over time, the tree appears to move. Like, it really does seem like it's like adjusting itself and moving around and making a face. Like, if you watch, you can see the tree's face. Did
you send that to me?
I don't know. I might have. I send you so much stuff I can't really remember, but
I mean,
yeah. And they're like watching it, and over hours, it looks like this tree has a face, and the face moves through the branches. And I was like, "Is this for?" So anyway, can walking palm trees really walk? And this basically says, in this particular article right here, this is on livescience.com, which I can't vouch for its scientific pedigree. They're talking about a walking palm tree in Costa Rica. And this was the example of walking tree when I Googled it to try to go back to where I was seeing some things, People Incorporated podcast. And the article talks about, hey, anyone ever seen a peculiar carnivorous Venus flytrap plant gobble up a fly, right? Knows that plants can take on decidedly unplant-like behavior. Trees, as we all know, are pretty stationary, and they stay more or less where you plant them. And no one worries about finding a tree wandering around a park or a backyard. And they're saying there is one exception. It's the so-called walking palm tree. It's found in Latin America. It says many people believe it can literally walk around more or less, and this is because of its unusual root system. While most trees have one trunk, the palm splits into many smaller roots a few feet off the ground, giving it the appearance of having many legs. And it says the amazing ambulatory ability of the walking tree has been told by rainforest guides to tourists for years and appears in many sources as an amazing plant adaptation. So, and there's a journalist named Sherry Seathaler, and she talks about, in her book, Curious Folks Ask, Part 2, a screenwriter searching for the perfect B-movie plant protagonist could take inspiration from the walking palm, which is found in the rainforests of Central and South America. The tree slowly walks from shade to sunlight by growing new roots towards the light and then allowing the old roots that are interfering with it to basically die. So, I don't know. It's kind of nutty.
I don't have that article.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought I sent it to you.
So.
Do you not have the article because it did not load?
I have a different...
Curse you, Elon Musk.
I have a different article altogether.
Do you have the one that I was originally looking for?
No.
All right, then. Moving on.
Carl Gruber, like the Ents from J.R. Tolkien's epic Lord of the Rings saga.
Oh.
These trees actually move, but can they walk faster to escape the chainsaws and machetes that threaten them?
Oh, yeah. I disregarded that one.
So, and unlike your article, which is going into some great scientific detail that has me fascinated, this one is just like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Beware.
Yeah. But it mentions a lot of the same things you do with the new roots, but this claims the old roots slowly lift into the air. And I'm like, so can you watch them? That's what I want to know. It
might take a while.
You know? So, during our investigations, we discovered some undocumented 30-meter waterfalls, 2 new vertebrate species, and the walking trees. And I'm like, okay. So...
Yeah.
I want to know if they're suggesting that, like, when the new root system goes down, that instead of dying off, like your article says, if they actually lift up so it looks like steps.
I don't know.
That would be kind of cool. Like,
from what I gathered, the roots die and they sort of shrivel.
Mm-hmm. And
so they just kind of come apart so it looks like they're in the air.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I suppose if you took a camera and an intervalometer where you can set, like, 0 to 9,999 pictures over whatever time you want.
Yeah.
As long as you've got power supplied, you could probably take a picture, enough time to see it sort of happen. But I don't think I have enough patience to sit there to see. Now, of course, if I seen a tree running down the road or something, then, it's like Jumanji, right?
Well, I know this is about a very, lush tropical rainforest area, but we would see trees move in New Mexico, and it was a certain type of like cedar pine. It would grow and it would latch on to like the rocks in the mountains. But as soon as springtime would come and it would rain or flash flood, the tree would move with the flood, not walking, but it would shift down, and then it would just automatically sprout new tiny roots and just grow where it's currently at.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's not as cool as it was.
I know. I want to see like a Lord of the Rings Ent just walking around, you know?
Throwing trees at other trees.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And they also talk about the possibility that these trees can walk up to 20 meters a year. I'm like, okay.
That's pretty far.
It is pretty far. And so are these reptile men.
Okay.
Yeah. Came across reptile men because of an article about these giant caves that they found in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That are so large they could have like their own ecosystem type thing. And allegedly, there are reptile men that have been made mention. Right?
Yeah.
And so that got me thinking about, remember the rock apes in Vietnam where people said there's these giant apes that throw huge rocks at you and stuff like that, and they're pretty crazy looking, and so everybody's thinking Bigfoot. And then there was other articles and things that made mention of like lizard people or reptile people like in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. Even on Mysterious Universe a couple of years, about 4 years ago now, they were talking about a story that somebody had told them, but a gigantic underground world discovered in Vietnam could be habitat to an ancient reptilian race as visitors begin to report mysterious sightings of reptile-like humanoid creatures, with at least one person being abducted and never seen from again.
After?
And this, after the cave was opened.
Yeah.
In 2013.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you've seen some pictures of these big giant caves, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're huge. You see, like, you know, it's tall enough to have its own ecosystem. Like some caves, some of these caves are so large they have their own clouds.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like everybody here on the East Coast, like the biggest caves you're probably going to see are like Luray Caverns or Mammoth Cave or something like that. You get out west, you have things like Carlsbad Caverns where you can, like a crowd of people can walk into one of the entrances. And then you go to like Brazil where there's like amethyst caves that like you could have a whole city in. And then these caves, there's a lot of caves in like Asia and Southeast Asia that are just huge. You could have an entire civilization in. They have their own ecosystem. They have their own weather, like you're saying, like the clouds and everything. But in 2013, when this cave actually opened up, it was so huge. They would have teams of archaeologists in there, and, you know, they would get lost or they'd get hurt.
Yeah.
And I think now it's like you really have to go with, like, extra people and stuff like that. So,
I don't know. I thought it was pretty crazy. And you know the crazy part of it is?
What?
The post has been removed.
I saw that,
Dun,
but
dun, dun.
yeah.
Hey, man. This is how it starts.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't this cave have some sort of folklore about people disappearing besides that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We'll never know because they have taken it away.
yeah.
But, I mean, it would make sense. So you see some of these big giant caves, I mean, I don't know how far I'd want to explore in there. You know, because one guy who was actually on Joe Rogan talked about, because you know how you cruise through YouTube and you hit clips? Mm-hmm. And he made mention of this caves being so large, they had to camp in it. It took like 6 days to cross the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's the only part of the clip I seen. And, you know, that was it. It's like, oh, wow, that's neat. And then all of a sudden these cave things started popping up. And it even reminds me of it's like 12 miles long somewhere in the Amazon rainforest where they have like all the carvings along the walls.
Yeah.
When it talks, yeah. So it's just that sort of undiscovered hidden world type thing, you know. Now, I do have something to say. If you're looking to find some of your mysterious black magic items, you can go to a black magic capital of India and do some shopping, right?
Yeah.
And so you got the fascinating secrets of the Mayong, which is the black magic capital of India. Okay. And I had no idea such a thing existed, so I don't know if you want to cruise through there, get some snacks or whatever, but evidently it's supposed to be a tourist destination that you can go to. and find some fascinating secrets. And according to this person, Ravi Rajan, it says in the article that he wrote, Wander Wisdom, I guess it's probably his blog.
Yeah.
It basically says the Mayong village is eerie, and you have creepy tales about the place, people vanishing in the thin air, men turning into beasts, dolls and skeletons dripping with blood, even wild animals being magically tamed, and there's no clear evidence of any of this, but the people of Mayong claim that they have seen some strange things happen beyond the realm of logical human thinking. The biggest mystery of all happened in 1337, when an entire army of 100,000 horsemen, right, basically perished in the forests of Mayong, and no trace was found of even a single person. It was as if the army had never existed. And my thought was, or maybe they just left, right? But anyway, so the black magic capital of India is a small village. It's in the district of Assam state.
Yeah.
And they call it the black magic capital of India because it had a fearsome reputation, but you can also buy all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's
like
basically
voodoo and black magic practitioners, and
it would be the equivalent of a less populated New Orleans, you know?
Yeah, because it's kind of dying off, but at one time that's where you went to get like legit black magic stuff. Black
magic, ceremonial, any like local indigenous faith type stuff, you would go there. You'd make the trek or pilgrimage there. And you'd also visit certain ancient temples there. There's a Ganesha temple there, a couple of Shiva temples or shrines, and something called a Kechiakati shrine.
Yeah.
And all of these are already, they exist for you to visit, but they're surrounded by all these important archaeological findings. These archaeological findings kind of strengthen or bolster the belief that this place was highly, highly religious in nature, but more outside the spectrum of traditional faith in the area.
Yeah.
So it sits on a sacred river, but then it's got like these wilderness and wildlife sanctuaries next to it. And I think just the combination of just being like squeezed between those two and some folklore about witchcraft just kind of amps it up a little bit.
Well, they did find during some recent excavations the practice of human sacrifice. So at one time, I think this was probably like a legit place.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize there are different aspects or sects of Hinduism that it wasn't necessarily that they were outright cannibals. They did sacrifices, and then there were a whole group of people who eat their dead, and that's
how you get your power.
And that stuff, is kind of slowly erased with history. So,
yeah, because it even says there's today, with few practitioners of the craft left and the youth turning towards the cities for better opportunities, the magic is dying.
Yeah.
And the older generation of people who are still practicing the craft, but even then, there's a dwindling population amongst them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If you're ever out that way, you can go to New Orleans and go check out some stuff. Or if you're in India, maybe you can travel out to Mayong and see some stuff.
Yeah.
It's like dun dun dun. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. But it's not as interesting as what we're going to talk about next. Now, next, Queen Elizabeth passed away, and it was a big, long sort of process, pomp, circumstance, whatever you want to call it, traditional, to get her to the point where she's buried and laid in state and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But there was a weird sort of thing that happened with some news. That during some news, a strange voice came out and basically said some stuff, and it kind of took them aback for a second. And nobody really knows what the deal was with this. I'm going to call it an EVP, because it's not really an EVP per se, but it is something that kind of reminds you of an EVP. And talking about something that happened during the broadcast when the Queen was being transported. And so we're going to play that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but we're not going to play that right this second, because we have an ad we can play now. Because if you want to start your own podcast, there's a way you can do it and get some money off while you're trying it. So you're not fully invested to spend your like $8 to start a podcast. So anyway, here goes.
Are you looking to start a podcast? Then see this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify. Get helpful audience building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They can even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, and everywhere with Libsyn. Again, see our show notes for our unique Libsyn promo code and get podcasting.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so if you want to start a podcast, just on a side note, there's a couple different ways you can do it, of course. And there's lots of different podcast providers, and there's a bunch of free ones out there. But remember, if you're being provided that service for free, you are not the customer. You are the product. They are selling your information or whatever they're doing to provide you that service, but you are the product, not the customer. At least if you pay somewhere like we pay, we use Libsyn and we do pay. I'm the customer. So if something goes wrong and it's outside of my hands, I contact them and they say, "Oh, so sorry," and they fix it.
Yeah.
Which is a rarity because it doesn't happen very often. So that's just something to keep in mind. So anyway, if you want to start a podcast, we do have a link in the show notes. Gives you a discount on sign up, and you can, do it all you want. If you have any questions, we'll help you. So within reason. Well, I mean, some expert questions, you just turn them on to, here you go. These guys are the experts.
Yeah.
So yeah, this weird sort of Queen Elizabeth thing, it's kind of weird. It's kind of ominous.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play it. You want to hear it? Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
Death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
As you can see,
that death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
as you can see, as you can see here in London, it is a lovely day, and as the hearse heads out into West London, Emily Morgan.
Yeah, what do you think?
That's weird.
Yeah, the death is irreversible, and as you can see, she's trapped. And the broadcaster, right, the news person stopped. It was like talking because they heard it too. They're like, "What? Isn't that weird?"
I'm trying not to be skeptic.
Listen.
That death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
As you can see,
The death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
I'm seeing this is going crazy all over TikTok right now. And
Oh, it was going crazy like a week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And
I'm like, do I want to talk about this or not? Because, it could easily be, this was one of the most televised things out there at the time. And, whether you like the Queen of England or not, it doesn't matter. It was publicized all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And constant ongoing footage. And there's bound to have mistakes being made during the broadcast process, I'm sure.
yeah.
Like me, I couldn't even find the volume, right?
Yeah.
But this, when I seen this and then I heard it and I played it like 100 times, I'm like, what does this mean? Nobody really seems to know what it means, I guess, at last check. But man, isn't that kind of like, and this is when the hearse is going down the road.
Did this play on BBC? This clip? Or the
Death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
as you can see,
Yeah.
ITV News?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like Australia, New Zealand, all of that stuff.
Okay. So.
The death is irreversible.
And I'm sitting here trying to
And the
think.
fact that she's trapped.
I'm trying to think maybe they were about to play a commercial for a spooky show.
I don't know. There is a theory that, she was immortal and then she's died many times and always came back.
Yeah.
But she was in the box, I guess. Never seen it, that she, I don't know. It's just this thing that kept going on.
That
I'm
is
like,
just so weird.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
So.
I'll get my mileage worth one more time.
That death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
as you can see,
I can't get over it. It's just not cool, man.
No, it's not. Huh. So from there, I found something that I kind of thought was funny in a weird sort of way. Mm-hmm. And this was, I'd sort of heard about this a long time ago, but never really paying no attention to it. Don't know where I heard it from. But then, I didn't, and I put this in here for a couple different reasons. So first off, I thought it was funny. And secondly, I didn't even know that Boing Boing still existed as a website. You know what I mean? Like, this just goes way back. What's the other, like, it was, what's the other word? Dredge?
Yeah.
Yeah, and all that. It's like all these weird old sites. So, this is a story about W.B. Yeats and Aleister Crowley, and they once battled each other in an epic real-life magical duel.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there's a link that you can click on that takes you to a YouTube video, but I'm not gonna do all this to give you sort of the abridged version, right? Mm-hmm. And the article said, and of course this is in our show notes, you can try and check it out. It's written by Tom Dunn. Yeah. He writes, I'm frankly ashamed that I'm only just recently learned about the Battle of Blythe Road, an actual real-life magical duel between W.B. Yeats and Aleister Crowley that ended triumphantly when Yeats dropped the magic act and just kicked Crowley down the stairs. Right? So, and I picture a lot of posturing going on with all this stuff. As future Yeats biographer Richard Ellman explained in the 1948 edition of the Partisan Review, Crowley and Yeats were part of a secret order called the Hermetic Students of the Golden Dawn.
Huh.
And I've heard of that, right?
I've heard of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it says, although some other folks you may have heard of, like Bram Stoker, and Algernon Blackwood, they were an esoteric posse, right? They shared an interest in the magic and the occult, but Yeats was concerned, perhaps even legitimately, that Crowley might have used their arcane knowledge for evil ends. So they tried to banish him from the group's inner circle. So they thought Crowley was going to be evil, right?
Yeah.
Needless to say, Crowley was not pleased. And so this is from Ellman. Crowley refused to accept their decision. He went to Paris and there persuaded the chief of the Golden Dawn, right? Mm-hmm. Who's a Celtophile magician named MacGregor Mathers, to deputize him to wrest control of the London Temple of the Order away from Yeats and his friends.
Oh, wow.
And Mathers furnished Crowley with the appropriate charms and exorcisms to use against the recalcitrant members and instructed him to wear the Celtic dress, and equipped accordingly in Highlander's tartan, with the Black Crusader's cross across his breast, with a dirk at his side and a skin-dew at his knee, making the sign of the pentacle inverted, and shouting menaces at the adepts. Crowley climbed the stairs, but Yeats and two other magicians came resolutely forward to meet him, ready to protect the holy place at all costs. And when Crowley came within range, the forces of good struck out with their feet and kicked him down the stairs. Yes. And so Crowley retreated to lick his wounds and later tried to seduce the Anglo-Irish artist Althea Giles into aiding him for his little revenge, right? But Giles was clever.
Yeah. And
she stole a lock of Crowley's hair and passed it on to Yeats, who allegedly used it to cast a series of spells that would limit Crowley's power.
Huh.
It says the last part may or may not have involved a vampire. In Ellman's recollection, it's unclear. Anyway, there's a short documentary above if you'd like to learn more. So I just think it's like funny to get all like, here we go, and you get a pair who's like going to attack them, and you know how they defended themselves against the magic?
Yeats yeeted him down the stairs.
He sure did. He just kicked his ass square in the chest and booted him down the stairs.
And so Yeats yeeted him down the stairs, and then the person who wrote this article just casually slips in at the end that somebody got a lock of his hair, and there may be a vampire involved, but that's the end of this article, I have decided.
Yes. Isn't that great?
Let me just casually slip a vampire in here.
Hey, man. But still, I just thought that was kind of funny, like... Yeah.
And then, I mean, okay, there's a lot here that's not being said.
Of course. It's not funny if you include all the stuff.
But then you also think about it. Okay, Crowley got really big. Really, really big. Had somebody not taken a bit of his hair and probably a jar or whatever people do in ceremonial magic, could he have gotten bigger and more powerful?
Possibly, but then again, I think if he got bigger and more powerful, somebody would have actually kicked more of his ass than just kicking him down the stairs. Yeah, a lot of people talk big.
Yeah. That's true.
Until they get kicked in the chest. Right?
And yeeted down some stairs.
So a lot of brave words come out of your mouth until somebody punches you in it. So I thought it was kind of funny because I'm reading, I'm like, and it's like they yeeted him down the steps. Yeats just booted him in the chest. So it's like, what's Crowley doing at the bottom of the steps? I scoff at thee, right?
I wonder if
it sort of reminded me of Monty Python, where it's just a flesh wound to,
yeah,
that whole sort of thing. So I'm like, I'm going to put that in there. I thought it was funny.
I wonder if this is the first historical occurrence of yeeting.
I think so. But yeah, I had never really heard anything really about the Battle of Blythe Road, but I have heard of the Hermetic Students of the Golden Dawn. But did I want to research that? Not really. I mean, I kind of like, well, it's neat, but not really into that kind of thing. But yeah, he got yeeted, so I thought it was hilarious. So I had to put that in there. That was the Battle of Blythe Road.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now you put this in here.
Yep.
And you've just further solidified that I will not and no longer ever swim in any North Carolina lakes because in the past, in the past we've talked about brain-eating amoebas and stuff like that, and now there's this. Not going.
Okay.
And plus the water smells funny.
So there's a lot of local and urban legend, some of it based in fact, regarding lakes and bodies of water in North Carolina. Anything ranging from in Kerr Dam, there's catfish the size of Volkswagen Beetles to the flesh-eating amoeba stuff. Brain-eating amoebas to even water cryptids or strange things like that. So in Moore County, North Carolina, when someone with the local news reported a piranha was caught in a North Carolina lake, I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
It's an actual cryptid.
Like, that's it.
Yeah. But
started making T-shirts. You know what I mean? It's
we really should.
Oh, here we go. But
but then you click on the article to learn about it, and the news has me a little let down. Yeah. Now, a North Carolina angler did make quite the catch. According to Chad Ray, a piranha with razor-sharp teeth was reeled in from the waters of Aberdeen Lake in Moore County. Ray posted several pictures of the fish on Facebook, warning swimmers of the find. Now, the NC Wildlife Resources Commission says the fish was likely kept as a pet and was tossed into the lake by its owner after outgrowing its tank.
Of course they'd say that.
Which I find amusing in the sense that you can see the dude's hand in some of these photos. It's not that big of a fish.
No, it's like the same size as like a pumpkin seed or a brim or something you'd normally catch, the small panfish that you'd normally catch in the lake.
You could put 2 hamburger buns on this thing and have barely anything sticking out.
Yeah, they're not very big. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not very big to begin with, but it makes it sound like,
It makes it sound like you're not supposed to step anywhere near this lake, this Aberdeen Lake.
Yeah.
But then the photo is just this kind of grubby piranha. And one of the photos, it's like, how long has this thing been dead? Yeah,
so, I mean, it could be a hoax.
Yeah.
But I like the way they have the first picture captioned for you. If you go to the website, which is linked in our show notes.
Yeah.
It says fish. Photo, Chad Ray. It's like, ooh, that's descriptive. And it's just mangy, scrungy looking fish, right? And then the next one says fish.
Yeah.
And he's got the piranha and he's putting it up next to the lake rules, like he's just kind of joking with it, right? And then the third picture, he's got those little mouth pried open and you can see all those crazy teeth in there.
Yeah. Now, despite the find, biologists are saying they have no concern of this species establishing itself in the lake. Piranha are warm water fish and would not survive the winter in North Carolina, the organization says. However, I'd like to point out some of the fish in Kerr Dam and places like that, when it gets cold, they just swim deeper.
Yeah, that's what most of them do.
Yeah. So, and like in Suffolk, Virginia, there's this big giant lake full of goldfish that people just started throwing their... Okay, so in Suffolk, people would have those carnivals that you took your kid to and you threw a little ball in a tank and you got to bring that goldfish home.
Right.
Well, this lake was so close to where they had that carnival every year that inevitably one too many dads tossed the goldfish into this lake.
So now they got koi.
Yeah, so this thing, and some of them turned koi-ish. The others would turn into goldfish the size of my laptop.
Yeah.
I remember my uncle catching one, and I was just like, that is the ugliest thing.
Just gnarly looking goldfish.
So, and they weren't supposed to survive because it gets cold and stuff.
Well,
Virginia,
okay, so let's look at the historical documentary movie, Jurassic Park. Right.
Life.
Where they weren't supposed to be able to breed, and what happened? Nature finds a way, man.
Yeah.
You can tell me, because if they caught one, I mean, okay, so if it came out of somebody's tank, do you really just have one piranha? I mean, most people have like 2 dogs.
Yeah.
Because they don't want one to be lonely. So is it possible they got like 2 piranhas? So it's probably another one.
And piranha are school fishes, so it would make no
all
sense.
piranha hang out together.
Yeah. They're not beta fishes, Nope. They hang out in schools.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Everybody stay away from Aberdeen Lake.
Yeah. And if you're from Aberdeen Lake and you're all bent out of shape about it, hey, you got piranha in there, man.
Yeah, take pictures of your lake and send them to our
I'm
podcast.
one of these people that if you say, hey, this tastes like crap, taste it, I'm going to say no. I believe you that you have told me that it tastes like crap. I don't need to experience that with you. So if you're like, hey,
no,
stay away from Aberdeen Lake because there's piranhas in it, I'm probably going to listen and believe you.
Now, North Carolina Administrative Code would like to remind everyone that it is unlawful to transport, purchase, possess, sell, or stock piranha in the state's public or private waters.
So you can own it. You can bring it home, put it in your bathtub. Can't put it in the state lake. That's really what it boils down to. So there you go.
Oh, man. I was listening to
Now, that being said, we here at the CreepGeeks Podcast are going to be ever vigilant. I have already set a Google alert for piranha in North Carolina Lake just to see if any more show up.
That would be kind of cool.
And we'll let you know.
Yeah. Keep an eye out.
Yeah, because I will call them up and be like, hey, you guys got any more of them piranhas? What's the legal limit on that piranha? How many is it? Is it 11 inches or what we got there? How many can I take home? So, I don't know.
I mean,
because somebody's like, piranha, man.
Piranha.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be a joke. Because it does look pretty, I don't know. And I haven't really seen anything else with this Chad Ray person. If they've done any other articles. I mean, they could have just sent some picture. I don't know. So
let's just assume, though, that we've now got a new cryptid here in North Carolina. What would we call a piranha? Like the Moore County piranha or the Moore piranha? I don't know.
They have to give it a name like Chessie or Nessie. I don't know.
You said give it a name, and the first thing I thought was like Steve.
Yeah, that's probably not as good.
My name's Daryl. So we have Daryl the Bigfoot. We got Steve the Carolina Piranha.
Yeah, he's a piranha. Pete the piranha.
No, it's Steven.
With a PH.
No, a VH.
Right now, somebody's indignant in their car. What? How dare ye? I don't know. Anyway, so at this point, I think we're going to go ahead and probably go wrap up the old podcast. So if you're out and you're in a lake in Aberdeen in Moore County, watch out for Steves. It's not that funny. So, yeah. All right. So anyway, this has been the CreepGeeks Podcast. This was episode number 258, season 6. Let you in a little secret. Come episode 261, that'll be season 7 of the CreepGeeks Podcast. Not that it means anything. It might. You never know. So anyway, that's all I got.
Show notes for everything we've talked about in the podcast. Thank you again to our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, click the link in the show notes. We've also got some additional new links in here. The Crafted Intent Etsy shop. We have a few new stickers listed, as well as Crafted Intent's Lucky Crystal Skulls. Otherwise, give us a shout out on social media or reach out to us if you have a question or comment. We are all over Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. Just look for CreepGeeks Podcast or use the links in the show notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So alrighty, that about wraps it up for this particular episode. So see you later. Take it easy. Bye, Sickle.
Bye.